Hello, I'm Ryan Fabian, and this is my demonstration speech for public speaking. Today, I'm going to be talking about the truth behind Teflon cookware and its superior, cheaper counterpart, aka cast iron. So, Teflon maybe kills you. Stainless is expensive, and everything else is impossible to clean. Everything sticks to it. So, let's first talk about what makes Teflon a less than desirable option when you're going to cook. First of all, there's a lot of debate on its health issues. I'm not a scientist, and it's really hard to find science, and there's a lot of conflicting science on the topic, so I'm going to let you do your own research on that. But there's a lot of people that will tell you Teflon is related to cancer and a bunch of other not so great things for your body. So a lot of people, when using Teflon pans, will use metal spatulas and chip at it, and then the coating starts to flake off and into your food and gets into your body that way. So that's obviously not ideal. The other issue is if you leave a Teflon pan on the stove without anything in it and it gets too hot, it has a pretty low point at which it'll start to burn up, and that's also really not good for you. So that can be an issue. Now that we know some of the risks of Teflon, let's look at its alternative, and that would be this here cast iron. So first, this stuff is durable. You can pass this down from generation to generation and it'll never break. And no matter how rusty and old it looks, it can always be restored. So this could be a pot that you hand down to your grandkids one day, and even, yeah. They're only like $15. You can go to Walmart and get a nice skillet like this for 15, maybe 20 bucks, and turn it into a really, really nice piece of cookware. One of the other advantages is heat retention and distribution. This stuff is heavy. There's a lot more mass to it than a standard pan, so it holds a lot more heat. When you're throwing a steak on here and want that nice sear, the heat that's held in the pan will help to get you a way better crust on your steak, and it'll therefore be much tastier. Also, if you do it right, like this pan over here that has a glassy smooth finish, it is non-stick and as good, if not better, non-stick surface than a Teflon pan. So if you can do that, why would you risk getting cancer from a Teflon? So these pans are often intimidating to new people. I've seen jokes online about how they are like caring for another child because they seem like so much work. But once you do it once, and as long as you take care of it, like I said before, it'll last generations. So I think it might be worth your time. Like I said before, they can always be restored. This is an example of what a pan or a Dutch oven will look like if it's been sitting for way too long. This is nice and rusty here. So there's multiple different ways to clean this up. I prefer to use a drill. It's a lot less labor intensive, but other options would be a wire brush or some steel wool or some copper wool. These are different abrasive options. Here's some steel wheels, wire wheels. This is some other stuff that they all work pretty well for cleaning this up. I really like using the wire brush here. So I did a little spot earlier, but if you just take your drill and you can get all that rust right off of there pretty easily, and it'll take a little bit of time and some manpower, but you'll get there and it'll be worth it, I promise. So yeah, once it gets clean, it'll maybe look a little something like this right here. This isn't perfectly clean and would still need a little more touch up. But you can move on to the next step, which is doing your first step of seasoning. And to do that, you're going to need some oil. Now, what type of oil is maybe a little bit important. I recommend, and the more smart people recommend, flax and grapeseed oil. The smoke point on those is a little bit higher, so your layer of seasoning will be a little bit harder and be able to withstand higher heat. So especially for the initial layers of seasoning, grapeseed or flax are kind of what you should lean towards, and then after that you can use olive or vegetable or canola or whatever you want. So at first you're going to want to take, this is important, lint-free rags. These are heavy-duty shop towels. Don't just use paper towels. You'll get little bits of your paper towel all through your pan, and that's no fun. So to do this right, you're gonna wanna just dump a little bit of oil on there after it's all clean. And then you want a really thin layer of oil. It's important to not have too thick of a layer because it gets gummy and then it'll go rancid. And you need a thin layer for it to properly do its thing in the next step. Which, after getting it entirely oiled here, let me just a little more. Yeah. So the next step is giving it some heat. And there's a couple different ways to do this. The original way was just throwing it on the fire, but we have temperature regulation, which makes this process a lot easier now. So a lot of people will suggest throwing it in your oven for 5 minutes or for an hour at 300 or 450 to 500 degrees. It can be flexible and depending on how big of a pan and what oil type, it might change a little bit. So you can kind of do some of your own research on that. But 450 for an hour is a general rule of thumb. But it does smoke a lot. You're bringing this oil up to its smoke point, which can make your house all smoky. So it might make sense for you to do this out on your grill if you have a grill, just to keep all the smoke outside. So the chemical process of this is called polymerization, which means your oil is getting up above its smoke point and kind of makes a hard, almost crusty-like layer on your cast iron, and you have to get it to that temperature for it to do that. I'll show you this pan here, which has been seasoned now, and it kind of has this golden hue to it, which it is what it looks like until you get 4 or 5 layers of seasoning on it, and then eventually it will start to turn all black. For cleaning these, you don't have to throw them in your dishwasher. You don't really have to clean them at all, actually, and especially if you have a really good non-stick pan like this. All you have to do is get all the food out of there, which it should just kind of wipe right out, and then if you want to, you can throw a little bit more oil on it and throw it back on your stove, let it kind of heat up, and then just put it away. There's not a whole lot you have to do. Don't worry about desanitation or anything like that. And in fact, you don't want to put soap or other products on here that will eat through the layer of seasoning that you have on there. So I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. I think it might be worth you guys checking out these cheap, heavy duty, pretty awesome pieces of cookware. It might be worth a few dollars and a few minutes of your time. So I hope you learned something and enjoyed this presentation. Thanks. Bye.